Hey everyone, today we will finally be following up on the 1000 subscriber AMA. With the move and everything, it's been quite crazy. So I very much apologize for getting this video to you so late, but I'm excited to get started. Some of these are from the comments and some of these are ones that I've been asked personally through DMs or wherever else. And the first question is, when did you come out? I had came out about 3 years ago, and it had been a very long process from like initially coming out to when I had been able to get on hormones. I am very comfortable in like androgynous forms of dress and whatnot. So a lot of me dressing how I want to dress was taken as me presenting male or whatever else, and it took a long time for any form of my transition to be recognized in like a serious manner. It also took a long time to just like accept that I was trans and that like medical transition was the correct option for me. I had first kind of come around to accept that I had gender dysphoria and that like things would be better if I was born female and stuff like that. But yeah, it took time to accept. Will you do a trans timeline video? I've gotten this question a few times, and I guess my main complication is sort of being able to separate their benefit to early transition people from the cis sensationalization of it. And it's just sort of hard to upload content like that does get abused and exploited. Pretty much all of them end up on like these content farms that dehumanize the trans women in them. I enjoyed them personally a lot in my early transition, and I think they were a good form of encouragement, but I just got a sour relationship with the potential of just opening myself up to be like exploited for just this random person's profit. Though I might end up doing one if I hit an important milestone and I stop caring so much. How do you get the courage to post on YouTube? I honestly really don't know, and I don't think I've got any good advice for it. I still am somewhat insecure in my content, and that especially was the case when it was sort of the first like boom in subscriber count. I definitely cater my content to other trans femmes, specifically trans femmes in other similar situations or intersections as me. And it can sort of be hard when people I know watch them, especially when they are cisgender or non-queer. I'm also quite terrified of how it may impact future job prospects, just with divulging confidential and like very private details of like medical transition and discussing very strong political opinions. I may have to end up privating the more personal videos in the future, but we'll see how it goes. Where do you envision the channel in 2 years? I honestly have no idea. I do not know what I'll be doing in 2 years, and I certainly don't know if in whatever situation I'm in, if I'll be able to continue filming. I definitely want to continue doing YouTube, and I'm very happy with the results of my work so far and sort of the impact I've seen that it has on others. What is your highest hope for the channel? I really don't know. This is far above anything like I could have expected from the channel. Having people that are like actually actively waiting on my uploads feels insane, and it's like super cool to be that sort of form of representation that I never had when I was growing up or in my early transition. It'd be cool to continue to meet a lot more of the YouTubers I enjoy watching. And it'd be cool to like reach a point of financial compensation for my work, just because I do put a lot of time into this. A very unrealistic goal would be like being able to do an international documentary where I can sort of like travel around the world and document like individual trans experiences, from different cultures and countries, and sort of how they differ, and sort of these very unique and nuanced elements that like make trans identities so different. What video topics are you looking forward to? I've probably got like 40 video topics like planned out in a notes list, and I'd love to address all of them, but time is a major constraint. I'm mostly tired of like personal transition documentation, like HRT updates, though I've got one more written, so I may still film that. I'm still open to doing sort of story time videos and like stories of experience and discrimination and navigation and stuff like that. But I'm just sort of wanting to branch out from like personal documentation. I'm wanting to do a lot more political discussions and discussions of more abstract concepts. And I'm also wanting to discuss larger figures such as Jordan Peterson or Calvin Garrett. Also, having a larger platform now, I'm wanting to be able to put an international lens on certain issues within my local community, such as the Saskatoon Starlight Tours. And I'm also wanting to branch out from exclusively trans content. I want to go into sort of other identities, marginalizations, and intersections, to not be exclusively a trans YouTuber. How is your set coming along? I don't know if I've got it quite worked out yet, but this is what I have so far. What are the 3 favorite things about your new apartment? I really loved the bottle of piss that was in the back hallway, and the 2 cockroaches I got to meet. How did you choose your name, and what were other names that you thought of? I had actually chosen Luna well before I had like actually accepted that I was trans. I had a lot of dysphoria surrounding it, even though I couldn't place it, and I was always sort of looking for a different name. I'm not very like traditionally feminine, so I wasn't wanting a traditionally feminine or like cliche or common name. But then I kind of fell ass backwards into having a cliche trans name. But sort of the one other name that was bouncing around in my head was Willow. Yeah, my dead name is still probably the thing that gives me the most dysphoria, opposed to like anything else. Misgendering, I'm able to brush off fairly easily, but just yeah, my dead name gets to me. Do you have a Twitter? I do not. I've sort of avoided it so far because it's another thing that's going to kill my productivity, but I'm sort of seeing like the utility of it for like networking with other like YouTubers and stuff like that. So I don't know if I will end up getting one. I've also avoided TikTok for the same reasons of productivity. I know my productivity will tank if I ever download that app, and even though I know it definitely would help boost my platform, that's not necessarily something that I'm prioritizing. If you do want to find me on social media, I've got Instagram, and that's linked in all of my descriptions. So feel free to follow me there. What are your hobbies? I listen to a lot of music. I hike. I draw. I occasionally do personal research for fun. I enjoy reading whenever I have the time to do so, and I tend to mostly get absorbed in nonfiction books. And I also cook a lot. Do you play video games? I used to play video games a lot, and I mostly played video games on PC, but I struggle a lot to maintain focus on like non-productive things that I'm doing alone, so I can't really play much solo player games. I do occasionally play multiplayer games with friends and whatnot. What is your relation with music, and what's up with the guitar in the background? I really love music, and I love listening to it, whether it's alone or live or whatever. I've got a really nice sort of like a retro stereo setup, and I just let it play a lot of the time. And I also enjoy occasionally creating my own music, not necessarily in like a formal song, but just being able to play. Though I've got no talent in it really, it's just sort of I mess around and have fun. I definitely wouldn't call myself a guitarist. I had my guitar for about 3 years, and I played it a lot once I first had it, but since moving out I hadn't had an amp or anything, and I don't so much enjoy practicing when it's just unplugged. So I kind of fell out of practice and lost my skill at it, and I ended up having to sell it for cash in my move, but it's still something I enjoy, and in the future I see myself picking up guitar again. What music do you listen to? I listen to a lot of fan-led rock, as far as contemporary music, and a lot of Riot Grrrl adjacent stuff. I also listen to a lot of jazz and electronic sort of stuff, and I'm very interested in proto rock and a lot of the earlier 60s and 70s experimental rock. Some smaller bands I'd recommend would be Phlox, which is this sort of contemporary jazzy electronic music, and it's great for music you want to focus on, music that you're casually listening to, or sort of like social situations. It's like a very versatile sort of sound. Their music's very atmospheric, but it's also very detailed and creative. I also really enjoy Carbon Carousel. They're a very grungy and abrasive rock. The lead singer, who passed away shortly after, was incredibly experimental and a very, very good poetic writer. I'd also absolutely recommend an early sort of like jazz rock band called Dreams, that for some reason is nearly impossible to find on Spotify. So I don't know if you'll be able to search it, but I absolutely love their work and sort of the experimentation within their music. I also really like Dent, particularly their album with Lane Shea, where she sort of led and contributed a creative vision and was the lead singer on it. The album's called Eyeballs, and it's absolutely incredible. They're also a grungier, abrasive, experimental rock band, and I'm recommending them, despite the fact that they took my money and never sent me their band shirt. If you could have written any song in history, what would it be? I honestly don't know how to respond to this. Probably like my favorite song from history is 15 Miles to Provo by Dreams, and while I absolutely love it, I'm quite glad that I didn't write it, because there is absolutely no way that I'd be anywhere close to be able to play it. The pigeons outside are so loud. I really hope you can't hear that. Do you believe in astrology? Um, Not really, but I think it's fun. I don't really map onto my signs too well, specifically my sun sign, but I think it's cool, lighthearted, and a fun way to sort of frame the world. Where do you want to travel? At the end of the summer, I've got plans to travel to Halifax, which I'm very excited for. I'm also really wanting to visit Scotland, Peru, Indonesia, and I think North Africa is like very historically rich and it'd be super interesting to visit. I very obviously do not have the money to travel to these places, but maybe someday. There's also been a lot of really cool places that subscribers have mentioned, and I'd really love to visit, but I don't think that's the most practical. What are your favorite greasy and bad food choices? I don't know. I'm very much not attracted to a lot of bad foods. I tend to crave a lot of healthier foods a lot of the time. I really love sushi. I really love like fresh fruits and vegetables. I'll usually take like a pierogi over like a dessert. I really love savory foods, I guess. Um, Not so much greasy foods. Do you see yourself public speaking? Um, I'm not sure what I'd really speak on as far as like stuff related to this channel. It's not something I'd cross off, but it's not something I really see myself doing. As far as like outside of like channel related content and whatnot, I will certainly be public speaking because it's expected of me for like research to like host conferences where I discuss this and sort of answer questions on my research. And there's also a potential that I'll be TAing in the future or I'll be doing lectures. Public speaking has always been something super terrifying and dysphoria inducing. So I had sort of assumed that I'd have to like write it off for a future career, but I am open to it at this point. What sorts of opportunities do I want to come from my studies? I've got a lot of passion projects that I just want to finish and get out there. There's a bunch of like cool framework changes I want to push for in sociology through my research. Wanting to sort of push for an understanding that like inanimate objects can work as like social mediators and as like unique actors instead of just like institutions and individuals. And the sort of thesis I'm working on now is just like a whole new area of sociology. So it's very like cool to be like starting this new sort of area, but it's also frustrating to like not have any background research to draw off of and sort of just have to like use my bachelor thesis to create the background research to justify like a master's thesis. I may end up doing an actual video on my research and whatnot. Once I get to that point, we will see if I've got time for that. Is being a lesbian used to invalidate your gender? Yeah, I'd say definitely yes. I'd say that it's even used to invalidate the gender of like cis women. I had repeatedly been told growing up and like conditioned to believe that womanhood is intrinsically tied to like birthing and like being in a relationship with a man. And as I've come out, I've also been told that like me being a lesbian is antithetical to womanhood and that it proves that I'm not a woman. And a bunch of just garbage stuff like that. I think whether you conform or diverge from heteronormative like society and roles, and whether you participate in them, sort of like radically changes your experience of like gender and how you're discriminated against. What is your advice for presenting in public with the fear of violence? I think first of all, it's important to acknowledge that it's a real possibility and it does happen. I've got a lot of personal experience with violence or harassment in public. Not so much anymore now that I passed. Definitely value your safety and like do the best you can to stay safe, but that doesn't mean to stay in the closet. There's a lot of things you can do to like be safe and still be a trans woman. You definitely don't need to rush anything. Find a place where you're comfortable. Always sort of have an escape plan of like a plan B of something you can do to avoid a dangerous situation if one does occur. And just the longer that you are visibly trans in public, the quicker you learn to read people past and read how they're perceiving you and sort of how they're rationalizing that perception. What did you not expect in transition? I've been fairly like involved within trans spaces for a long time before like I had got on HRT, and I had done a lot of personal research on it to the point where I had been informing my own doctors of various realities of transition. The biggest thing would be something I've already addressed in a video, the psychological changes for sure. I knew they were like a thing, but I had no clue of like how extensive they were, and it's sort of one thing to like hear them, but it's another thing to like experience them yourself. How do you deal with difficult emotions? I guess I try my best to process them in a healthy way. When I've got my time alone, natural releases such as crying where you're able to experience the emotion and let go of it are very good. If another person's involved, it's very good to sort of get to talk to them and sort of air it out with open communication. Did you have doubts starting HRT? I definitely had a lot of doubts beforehand, but I don't think I necessarily experienced a lot of doubts once I had started it. I definitely had to wait a long time for it, which had like assured me in it, and HRT had worked very, very well for me. So I was quite certain that I definitely didn't want to go off of it. Though I know for a fact that I'm definitely the exception. It's very, very normal and common to have like doubts in your transition, or like questioning your gender or anything like that after you've like started HRT. And it's also like completely okay to be a trans woman that like doesn't need HRT or doesn't have HRT work with her. And not being on HRT doesn't like discredit your transition in any respect. Have you noticed a difference in how people interact with you since transition? Yes, definitely I have. It's been a major difference for sure. I never really experienced passing before COVID, so like my extent of social interaction is limited, but it's still been very obvious through it. Strangers, specifically old men, tend to be a lot more chivalrous, but like pretty much exclusively in like condescending ways. You hear a lot more condescending comments and stuff like that. Having my hair dyed and like being tattooed helped fix that a lot, because I'm not sort of like idealized as this like young blonde pure woman. And yeah, that's made me a lot more comfortable just interacting in the world, not having those sort of condescending comments and like mannerisms. Being like visibly lesbian has also like opened me up to like a whole lot of like harassment on like just dates that I'm on, even if I'm like purposefully and like deliberately out of the way in like a secluded place in a park, or if I'm just like holding hands with a partner down the street. And finally, I'm definitely sexualized different. While I was definitely like sexualized before, often by strangers and whatnot, it's a very different type of sexualization, and I most certainly get a lot more like attention from like pretty much every gender, whether it's like romantic or sexual. This could definitely be a whole video though. And the last question is planning out milestones of transition a healthy way to cope? I definitely think there's healthy and unhealthy ways to do this. It can be a grounding experience and sort of let you focus on the positive aspects and appreciate them even though they're not present. But I also think that it can be taken to the way of compulsion, and it can be very unhealthy. It can set up for disappointment, stress, or just entirely unrealistic standards of transition. And that is all for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And of course, thank you to everyone who submitted questions. I had a lot of fun answering these. I also want to thank you for putting up with my like long delays of like dealing with my move and whatnot. I am glad to be done with that, and I finally got internet again, so I'm happy to be able to post. If this is your first time seeing me, I'd love to have you to follow along and see more of my content. And most importantly, I hope you have a great day. Bye.